Star Trek's current directorial direction has certain people out there raging. And when I say certain people, there are certain crazies out there, certain people in cancel culture, you know their type. They're mad because Noah here is replacing the first female director of Star Trek. And you know, he's one of those white men that's replacing a female. Now, what's interesting about this guy is he's also one of them. If you go in and you look at some of the stuff that he said about his last movie, it is interesting. It is interesting indeed. Can a man tell a woman's story? Lucy in the Sky director Noah H. thinks so, in which he talks about all of the things that happen to someone because they're a woman, how actually the male gaze works into things, and so much more. Coming to a bridge near you. So hey there. So today I want to return to a new trash fire that's developing. And this one is interesting to watch because the people that this should appeal to, it's not going to because, well, this guy replacing folks. Now what's interesting about this guy is he's well known for television. In fact, if you look at Fargo, you look at Legion, you look at Bones, he's actually done a great deal of work on TV. But when we get into Lucy in the Sky, we talk about that movie, it only scored a whopping 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it was panned. It was considered an epic disaster, and people picked up on that. I mean, when you're talking about him going in and him replacing the last director out there, oh yeah, they took the Star Trek sequel away from the franchise's first female director and gave it to the man who just made one of the biggest bombs in 2019. What a mess. Now, what really happened in this is apparently there was a tale of two movies. You have S.J. Clarkson come in, who would have been the first female director of the franchise's history, proposing a movie wherein Chris Hemsworth would return as George Kirk, James Kirk's late father, and the two Kirks. They would meet through some spacey shenanigans, but all of that falls apart and appears to get shelved. Then this guy comes in with a different iteration. And not only does he get that, but he gets a bigger budget. And well, you can look at some of the comments that pop up about that. You know, people are batting hard for Noah H. saying gender is not a factor when it absolutely is. They couldn't pay Chris Pine what he wanted when a woman was at the helm, but when a white man comes on board, suddenly they can't pay Chris Pine and greenlit the movie with a bigger budget. I mean, you see more and more of this stuff. You see places like the Mary Sue going after it. It is glorious, and especially when you look at who this guy is. So here's an interview that came from the LA Times, and this one, I mean, just look at this stuff here. So again, we get all of the back patting, and we get all of that wondrous stuff you expect. And then on top of that, he's going to be talking about Lucy, the male gaze, and well more. So check these questions out here. There's a lot going on in Lucy, but the thing that rocks her world is when her boss says she's quote-unquote too emotional to go back up in space. That's going to spark some discussions. So right there, you see the question. You see how that's loaded. It tells you what kind of movie you're going to deal with. And what does he say here? It's interesting. She's not the only one that struggles with the experience of being in space, but she's the only one who gets dinged for it. We don't normally have movies in which that kind of institutional bias plays a role in the fate of our characters. For a lot of people, there are biases that keep them from being heroes that can save the day no matter what. The trick was to calibrate it in such a way that the movie recognizes it, that she recognizes, and so on. So, I mean, when we look at this, institutional bias is already thrown up in that. Isn't that beautiful? This week, Lucy opened. You posted an essay on media on raising sons in which you talked about what your mother, feminist writer Louise Armstrong, taught you about women. Is that a coincidence? It's hard for me to say. I do feel, as an American citizen and human being and a father in this world, I'm troubled by what I see as a simultaneously call for increased accountability and a backlash against it. It's a very male response to say, how dare you try to hold me accountable? I just wanted to talk about what it was like for me to be raised by a feminist writer. Now, we're going to skip certain portions of how that works out, but man, the conversation situations that are described here, fun times there, fun times. Now, as a male director who's made a film about a woman's story, so I've been talking a lot about gender, and it felt like it was a good time to do it, but I was careful not to mention the movie. It's not a marketing ploy. It just felt important. Now, a lot of men have acted blindsided by the whole hashtag you're thinking about here, discussion going on. Do you feel the way you were raised helped you to being a bit more woke before anyone called it that? Oh, definitely. So we got a woke director here. I've been a witness to the way in which men trying to silence women and invalidate their stories my whole life. I've had a lot of conversations about Lucy, in which I think, well, director James Gray made a movie about Brad Pitt going to space and having an existential crisis. You might think it's a good movie or a bad movie, but you never question if it's a valid story to tell. And there's a lot of pushback on telling Lucy. You know, is it empowering for women? Why would you tell a story about this woman who ruins everything? What inspiring to me is that she did the most human thing, which is that she ruined everything and had to figure out how to live with that afterward. Yeah, she traveled across the country in a diaper because she broke. Is that what you're talking about there? Fun times there, isn't it? Fun times. How much of what you learned on Legion, story or technical-wise, did you bring to your film debut? I was very aware in making this movie about a woman who has an affair that there is a male gaze. That's what the language of cinema tends to be, looking at women engaged romantically. It's very exterior, objectifying. Certainly on Legion, there were love scenes I filmed that I instinctively did what everyone does and only later realized that wasn't Rachel's experience. It was us looking at her. So how could I tell the story from Lucy's point of view, in which it's a story about her pleasure? It's about the emotion of it, not the acting of it. So you see how this goes on. And finally, a few years ago, you and I were talking about Fargo, and you said you were intrigued by the wilderness that resides in everyone, even heroes, and that the big question was, what is an individual capable of? Do you see that theme continuing in your work? I think the history of the world is often a war between our animal nature and the people who really believe that might makes right. I do think of that as a theme. I mean, if we solve it, I'll stop writing about it, but I think we're struggling with it more today than ever before. I really think civilization is a choice. So your choice in civilization was to go out and herald somebody that had a mental break, that took everything and threw it away to the point that, well, you redacted this portion, but you had them driving across country in a diaper to claim revenge. But hey, that's something to talk about. That's empowerment. That's the male gaze. Now, what I find interesting, even fascinating about that, is this is one of the people who would be out here yelling all of this stuff. I mean, when you think about the woman replaced by a white male, he would be one of them yelling that. Yelling it indeed. And I mean, when you look at these things, what does he do now? Noah H. directs a critical commercial dud, immediately gets rewarded with a Star Trek movie. Elaine May directs Ishtar, one commercial flop, then waits 3 decades to helm another movie. Nope, nothing suspicious about that at all. LOL. Now that's an absurd thought process, sure, but that's how this guy would normally think. So what does he do in this situation? What does he do for people like this? Does he placate them, showcasing who he was raised by, what he was raised to think, or does he continue to go out and showcase, all of that privilege? Fun times, isn't it? Fun times. That's what I love about this stuff now. Yes, sure, cancel culture, they've taken over the movies we like. They have basically pushed them to places I don't enjoy, but I enjoyed this part. I enjoy seeing not only their products fall apart, but also the people behind the scenes eating each other because they can't agree on that current year direction. Fun times. But what do you think about this? So ending this, I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for participating. While these people, they forget who empowers endeavors, we want to keep that in mind all the time. That's you. So thank you for that. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for getting to this point. If you want to help us with our engagements, liking, sharing, all of that stuff, definitely do. It's appreciated. If you want to check out our book, definitely do that as well. Again, appreciated. But just showing up and spending your time here, that's appreciated as well. So thank you. Appreciate that. We'll do this again soon. Thanks.